In the fragile morning mist of the Okavango Wildlife Reserve in Botswana, the early sunlight filtered gently through the acacia trees, casting golden light over the dew-covered ground. Amari, a young female ranger, drove her old pickup truck through narrow trails across the vast savanna. Since childhood, Amari had carried within her a deep and burning love for nature. She never wanted to be just an observer. She dreamed of being a protector of the wild. Every day, before leaving the station, Amari carefully checked her supplies: water, medicine, a first aid kit, and even a mobile medical toolkit for emergencies. During her patrols, she often stopped to study fresh footprints in the dirt, to listen to unfamiliar bird songs, and to feel the pulse of the earth and sky. This wasn't just a job, it was her calling. That day, just as the sunlight touched the tops of the tall grass, Amari noticed a small trail of blood on the ground. She stopped her vehicle immediately, a vague sense of unease creeping into her chest. Following the dry blood droplets slowly through the thickets, she gasped when she found a large male lion lying motionless, its body tangled in sharp barbed wire. Its fur was caked with dirt and dried blood. Its weary eyes met hers not with ferocity, not with threat, but with pain and hope. Amari's heart pounded in her chest as she cautiously stepped closer. Though severely injured, the lion was still a wild animal capable of sudden reaction. She opened her medical kit and took out a pair of specialized pliers and gauze, her eyes never leaving the lion. The barbed wire had deeply pierced the skin around its shoulders and abdomen, leaving dark, bleeding wounds. The sight made her throat tighten. She knelt beside the creature, whispering softly in the local language, as though calming a friend. The lion only exhaled heavily, its eyes half closed from pain and exhaustion. Amari began cutting the wire one strand at a time, her hands trembling with tension, sweat trickling down her brow under the growing heat. The sound of metal clinking filled the air, mingled with the lion's faint groans. Each time she freed a section of wire, she cleaned the wound with gauze and sprayed antiseptic. After nearly an hour of delicate work, the final strand of barbed wire fell away. Amari quickly wrapped the wounds with gauze and cloth to prevent infection. The lion shuddered slightly, then took a long, deep breath. Its eyes, still clouded, locked onto Amari's. In that moment, something unspoken passed between Thaman, ancient primal trust between two unfamiliar souls. Amari stepped back, giving the lion space. It slowly pushed itself up, staggering a few steps before turning its head to look at her one last time, then disappeared into the tall grass. In the days that followed, Amari resumed her patrols as usual, though her thoughts often returned to the lion she had saved. She wondered if it had survived in the harsh wilderness, bearing such serious wounds. Still, she knew that nature had its own rhythm and that the creatures within it were often stronger than they appeared. One evening, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting a red glow over the land, Amari stopped her truck by a stream to examine antelope tracks. That's when something extraordinary happened. In the distance, beyond the swaying tall grass, a familiar figure emerged. It was the lion. It was him. Though still weary, his coat was cleaner, and his movements slow but deliberate. He didn't approach. He simply stood there, quietly watching her, like an old friend. From that day on, the lion began appearing more frequently, always at a distance, but always nearby during Amari's patrols. Her colleagues grew concerned at first, fearing the lion could be dangerous, but Amari only smiled and said, "He's not following me to attack, he's following me to protect." And it was true. Every time she stopped to examine tracks or check an animal trail, the lion would stop too, waiting patiently until she returned to her vehicle. That silent bond gradually became a legend among the rangers in the Reservia, tale of a ranger and a lion bound by gratitude. The dry season swept over Okavango swiftly, leaving behind cracked riverbeds and yellowing trees. Elephant herds began to move restlessly, desperately searching for dwindling water sources. One afternoon, Amari was dispatched to the southern region of the reserve, where several tourist groups needed urgent evacuation due to signs of increasingly aggressive elephants. She drove through clouds of dust, helping each group retreat safely. But when she turned to regroup, she realized she had been separated from the others. In front of her was a herd of enraged elephants, the largest among them stomping and trumpeting furiously. With no escape, Amari climbed a low mound, surrounded only by reeds and broken tree stumps. The ground trembled under their feet. She knew she had only moments left. Then a thunderous roar tore through the plains. From the forest's edge, the lion emerged like a warrior, awakened, charging forward and placing himself between Amari and the elephants. He roared again, his presence bold, regal, defiant. The elephants hesitated. The lion didn't attack, but he stepped forward, unwavering, his eyes burning with fire. One elephant roared back, but he held his ground. In that moment, Amari bolted toward higher ground. When she turned back, she saw her wild companion standing, tall, proud, like a living monument carved from sunlight and courage. Amari stood frozen, breathless, staring at the lion facing down the enraged herd. The sunset bathed his golden coat in light, and Asantha, name she had silently given him, looked almost like a glowing statue. She knew she would never forget this image. A creature once hurt by human hands, now risking his life to protect a human from nature's wrath. The elephants roared once more, but this time, something in Hassan's calm defiance made them pause. One by one, they turned away and disappeared into the scorched woodland, leaving behind a trembling ranger and a lion who could barely stand. Hassan staggered toward Amari, his body trembling with fatigue. She rushed to his side, placing a hand on his dusty, sweat-soaked shoulder. "You saved me. Again," she whispered, as tears streamed down her cheeks. Hassan looked at her for a long moment, as if to say everything was all right. Then he laid his head in her lap, breathing heavily. Amari feared his old wounds had reopened, but there were no cuts, only the total exhaustion of a lion who had given everything to protect someone he trusted. More than just a thank you. Amari drove Hassan to the reserve's veterinary station. Along the way, she talked to him, afraid that silence might carry him away forever. She told him about the first moment she saw the blood on the grass, about that first eye contact, an eye no longer full of rage, but pain and the will to live. In the days that followed, Hassan rested in special care. Vets confirmed there were no serious injuries, only exhaustion. But what shocked everyone was his reaction whenever Amari entered the room. Hassan would raise his head, eyes softening, breath steadying, as though her presence alone was enough to heal him. News of the guardian lion spread quickly, reaching international conservation groups. People didn't come just to see a lion. They came to witness a bond that defied the boundary between man and beast. Lessons from the wild that never lies. When Hassan recovered and returned to the wild, he no longer followed Amari closely. Yet sometimes, at dawn, she would glimpse a golden shadow, watching from afar, quiet, loyal, expecting nothing. She began sharing their story with students, tourists, and aspiring rangers. She didn't speak with pride, but with gentle reverence, like recounting the life of a long-lost brother. Her story was not just about a lion. It was about rebirth, trust, and the sacred meaning of life bound to nature. She said, "I didn't save a lion. I only removed the wire wrapped around him. He's the one who saved me from indifference, from taking nature for granted. He reminded me that sometimes a small act of compassion can create an unending circle of love and gratitude. Legacy doesn't live in statues, it lives in hearts." Years later, Hassan's paw prints had long faded from the land, but his story was still told around the campfires. Tourists asked about him. Children heard tales of him like a myth from old times. Amari needed no medals or titles. She had something greater, a wild soul that once chose to trust her, and in Hassan's eyes, she had found her life's purpose. Whenever she stood on the open plains, with dry wind brushing her skin and the scent of grass and sun in the air, she would whisper, "I'm still here, Hassan, and I know you are too." The story of Amari and Hassan is living proof that the wild is not heartless. It is simply waiting for humanity to relearn how to love it rightly. We don't need to conquer nature, only need to listen and live alongside it. When we bow before the sacredness of wildlife, nature not only forgives you, it offers the purest connections of all, like that between a ranger and a lion, whose scar may never heal, but whose heart has never stopped beating for each other. If the story of Amari and Hassan touched your heart, please hit like, share, and subscribe to help us spread messages of compassion between humans and nature. Your support is the reason we can continue telling powerful, inspiring stories from the wild. See you in the next adventure.